Welcome back to Dear Creator. We have Gianna here. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I was so excited to get you on, and I feel like you've had a lot of pivots and evolutions over the span of your life, like with working corporate, and now you're a business owner. So I would just love to start off our conversation with talking about your evolution because, like I said, I know you've worked in multiple different roles. So what type of jobs did you experience throughout the years?
Oh, wow. Okay. My very first, like, let's say, like, real job when I felt like an adult was after college. I was a teacher. I taught high school for 5 years. I taught history, Spanish. It was my favorite job. Still, I mean, my current job that I'm now building for myself is rivaling this, but to
Hmm.
before that, teaching was my favorite job. And from there, I really started to, my teaching experience truly guided the next 15 years of my life because it made me really obsessed with understanding systems and the impact of systems on humans and the impact of humans on systems. And so from there, I went to work for a governor. I became the principal of a prison. I started,
Whoa.
I,
Wow.
I started the first virtual school in the state of Connecticut. And then I did some nonprofit work. I lobbied for educational equity, and then I went into corporate. And the reason I did was because I realized when I was lobbying, if I brought like a business person with me to just say the same thing I would have said, the legislature listened, and I was like, ah,
Mm.
all right. So I guess corporate has the lever for change. Let me go explore what that is. And it worked out for me because I had a ton of student loans, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna try to make an impact. I'm gonna try to get ahead on my student loans, and then I'm gonna go back to teaching. That was my plan. But
Okay.
now I've basically created all my favorite parts of all my favorite jobs in my current job now. And as of yesterday, it's my last day in corporate America. So you are catching me fresh, my friend.
Oh my gosh, how does that feel?
Wild, really wild. It was, yeah, I think it was a moment where I was like, wow, I didn't know if I would be able to do this. Like, because I was really
Mm.
scared. I was really scared for a lot of years leading up to it, for a lot of years of just like letting go of the structure and the safety. And
Hmm.
yeah, it was like, it's hard for me to feel proud of myself even these days. But yesterday I was like, I am so proud. It was amazing.
Yes, you
Yeah.
should. You should. That's definitely something to celebrate. I'm so curious about the plan. Like, was there any sort of plan for you? Well, I'm assuming that maybe there was a plan to leave corporate eventually as you started to do more of like this work on your
Mhm.
own. But how did you set yourself up to be able to quit corporate? I think a lot of people who maybe work corporate or work a 9 to 5 part-time job and they're working on their own thing right now, maybe more of like their legacy or body of work.
Mhm.
They're wondering how do they actually let that go? Maybe from an emotional standpoint, but also more like foundational, financial, stuff like that.
Mhm. Okay, I can take you through it. So I'm glad you're asking this question because I think that there's a lot of people like on the interwebs that are like, I'm gonna teach you how to leave your job and make 10K months
Hmm.
immediately. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, sure, if that works for people, that's amazing. But in my experience, I want to start with I got really burnt out. And everybody from my partner to my therapist to my family was like, Gianna, you really should leave. Like, we've never seen you like this. You're sick. You're
Hmm.
tired. You're bitter. And I was like, ah, no, I didn't want to like go down, in that way. And so
Hmm.
I did. My answer to this is that it is more of like an emotional inner world process in my experience than it is like having the right business plan and creating the right off ramp. Those things are important too, but if you do not have the capacity to like work the plan, you're sunk. And so
Hmm.
I always knew I wanted to leave corporate from the day I came in. But about 2 years ago, I was really like, I'm going to leave. And I was also at the point that I was the most burnt out. And I basically created a boot camp for myself. I mean, I was also like a competitive CrossFitter for a long time, an Olympic weightlifting
Okay.
coach. So I was like, I know how to make a work back plan like the best of them. So I was like,
Hmm.
if I want to leave in 2 years and I can't even imagine myself actually leaving and not recreating the same kind of messed up ways of working and habits that have contributed to my suffering here in corporate, I'm definitely going to recreate it when I run my own business. So
Mm-hmm.
it was sort of this process of just deconstructing from work, like a huge deconstruction from the identity that I had with that corporate identity, the attachment that I had to like productivity and being able to be competitive and being able to be right and use my brain in ways that was also really hurting me. And as I talk, I think that there are a lot of people who, whether you're a creative or you're a strategist, or it doesn't matter, you know what it feels like to feel those feelings. And I truly believe that those feelings can be a weapon or a wand. Depends how you're applying
Definitely.
them. And I was like hell bent on figuring out how to use them more as a wand than the weapon. And so, yeah, it was a combination of really just working with myself, a lot of like a kind of identity shedding
Mm.
practices. I'm happy to get into like examples if you think that your listeners would be
Yes,
like interested in this. So,
100%.
okay, so for example, there's a lot of people I know that like see some of these masterminds and programs out there with people who can join calls in the middle of the day, and they're like, "Oh, I can't do that because like I work."
Mm-hmm.
It started with me saying yes to a couple of programs and blocking out the time in my calendar and saying, absolutely not. That's my therapy. That's my this, and starting to get creative with how I voiced it to, people that I worked with in corporate. I was in a more senior role, so it was easier for me to like have control over my calendar. But
Mm-hmm.
nonetheless, I've coached people to do the same who are in far more junior roles. And it's like that protection of the calendar, I believe is the first step back towards autonomy of
Mm.
self.
Yeah.
Um, the second thing I started doing is just bringing more of myself to meetings. I mean, I would say it was like 2 years of slowly giving less and less of a fuck. And
Oh,
what
yeah.
I really like, and for me, I care a lot about systems and like the state of the world that we're in, etc. And
Mm-hmm.
I just started to like own more of my responsibility to be more of a radical force in rooms where people were just going to let things slide that shouldn't slide, whether that was like cultural ways of working together or decisions that were being made business wise, just being more of a pain in the ass and
Mm.
and practicing holding myself 10 toes down in my conviction no matter what was happening on the other end. And it couldn't happen like in these big ways at
Mm-hmm.
first. It had to be titrated. It had to be small little like, "Ooh, can I do this and then be safe?"
Yeah. It's like
And
kind of like, what's the phrase? Like, I don't know if this is correct, but like poking the bear a little bit.
mhm,
I don't even know if that's correct, but it reminds me of like softly like
mhm.
adding a little bit of flavor to your presence and like being a contributor to a team or the environment.
Hmm. And really, for m many of us who are like high performing people who are also creative, who like yearn to be in that space, it is the way that I would phrase it is like offering ourselves a more humane way to
Hmm.
be ourselves inside of a system that is not designed for us to be ourselves. And
Hmm.
that is a beautiful, for me, it feels like a much more beautiful way to integrate those parts of me into the work. And yeah, and I also started being honest about the fact that I wanted to leave corporate. I mean, everybody has to be careful about this in certain ways, depending on like if you're in corporate, what your relationships are like, etc. But I was almost like putting that delusion out there to create a lot of like external accountability because I also didn't believe it at the time. I did
Hmm.
not believe that I could do it. I was like, I don't know, I'm doing this, but I only half believed it. But I kept really, I don't know, literally physically creating glimmers of the world that I wanted to be living in for myself and slowly collected enough evidence to leave. And there's
Yeah.
also a financial component of that too. I was not in a place where I could just be like, I'm just leaving my job. I really had to be deeply considerate of the finances, and also being willing to let my life become a lot smaller,
Mm.
and make some trade-offs that otherwise like I wouldn't have to make, and those feel good for me. It's not going to be this true for everybody. I also don't have children. I have a partner who's totally aligned. Like there's a lot of other factors that
Hmm.
sexy Instagram posts do not tell the full truth on,
I
but
know, yeah.
yeah.
Wow. Yeah. It so something that really stood out to me was the fact that like maybe you half believed that you could leave corporate, and it made me think about sometimes like we say something, but we don't actually truly believe that we're able to do it. And I think a lot of creative entrepreneurs or just people in general, they dream so much, but it's like, okay, well then how can you make that dream happen? And I think you really do have to believe in yourself that you are capable of doing it. And I wonder, like, you talked about kind of like sprinkling it in, but like when did you actually notice that you actually believed in yourself that you were able to do it? Like was it physical, emotional? Was it what you like maybe like proof in like what you were doing
Hmm.
in your projects or the people who you were working with,
Hmm.
conversations?
Yeah, I think that it might be different for everybody, but for me, it wasn't like because I had been building my business as I was still, leaving corporate. But it's interesting. I didn't bring that up in any part of that answer. And that is
Mm,
because I wasn't using that as some sort of metric of readiness at all. I don't care if I made 200K in a launch in my side business. That was
mm,
not what I was looking for to know if I was ready. So to answer your question, it was far more somatic. It was far more
mm,
like, and I say this all the time, it was so grossly unsexy. I could never make an Instagram post about this because it's
mm,
like almost almost like gross the way that you have to be so interested in the very, very small muscle groups of what makes you
mm,
work. And so I'll give you an example. Like, I started to notice that some of those examples I shared, like t blocking out time on my calendar, speaking up in meetings, or even talking more about me as a creative being outside of corporate executive and
mm,
letting especially more junior people see me that way so that it's more of an invitation to them. I started to really track how the how much that came with ease. That was my leading indicator. That's always my first indicator. It's much more somatic. Like, did it rise all the way to my chest and stay there for 25 seconds, or did it rise up and fall down?
mm,
And those things, like being with yourself for 2 years and really seeing like, ooh, like where is my capacity at? That those were my leading indicators of just like how easeful it became for me to just be myself. I had a mountain of evidence. And it really wasn't like a big aha. It was like one day I woke up and I was like, damn, all of these things that I used to have so much strife around just felt easier because I allowed those small things to compound over time. And
mm,
for me, who had been a highly competitive, hard charging human my whole life, it was the most delicate thing I've ever done for myself. That is the way that I needed to do it because I proved to myself that I can be soft and I can be strong and I can build a
mm.
business and I can be a corporate executive and a damn good one in my, last couple of years. They were like some of the best years of my career because I was just
Yeah,
myself.
I love that. Ooh, chills. I think that's so cool though. You've reached the point where you set out that dream or goal and now what are you building? What are you working on?
I don't know if I have a clean answer to this. And I think that's part of the magic of
I love
like
it.
not knowing.
Yeah.
There's a few things I'm definitely doing. I'm pretty hell-bent on making sure that women have more pathways to be feral little freaks. And what I mean by that is like all of the conditioning, whether it's stuff from our families or stuff from we learned in corporate or stuff we hear from society across everything from creativity to body stuff to it doesn't matter to actually be able to utilize those systems to
Hmm.
deconstruct from them to be like the most feral, wild, and weird version of yourself that you can absolutely be with your family, with your friends, with your children at work, and the things that you're creating. Like, this world needs more of that,
Hmm.
assuredly. And so, a few ways that I'm doing this now is one through the apprenticeship. It's a 7 month long container, so I only do it once a year. It's really deep individual work, but in community. It truly is the practice of deconstructing from systems, playing with different paradoxes, learning how to hold yourself in the tension, and like really reconnecting that to a source of power. Like the things that typically crush us are actually the things that are our sources of power, but it takes time and patience and proximity. And like
Hmm.
I've explained, like a lot of delicate small action to get those things to be your sources of power. So that's what the apprenticeship is. And then I have the podcast. I write on Substack sometimes, less so these days.
Hmm.
And I still do corporate consulting, but only for like impact-based projects. I really care a lot about working with leaders at all levels and layers of a
Hmm.
system, including any creative, anybody who's leading absolutely anything, who like wakes up with a fire in their belly, like there's an immediate connection to the systems that are quite literally like designed to not let you thrive, and a lot of the times they sneak up on us and they become sort of where we put a lot of our energy instead of the creative stuff.
Hmm.
So, yeah, that's
That's cool. That's really cool. Yeah, I was actually thinking about these like the conditioning that you talk about a lot. And I'm curious if you could explain what that conditioning is and how it might be influencing creative people in their work.
hmm yeah. It's funny. I shared a story yesterday about a
I
great
saw
example
it.
of this. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
With
that.
the with cat, ask
Hmm.
cat GPT or whatever her handle is. Um, like a huge one is like directness in business, directness in corporate. Women who like know what the hell they're talking about, have a very firm conviction around why they feel a certain way, but then when it
Hmm.
goes to exit their mouth, they're not thinking about any of that. They're not thinking about where they have conviction or why what they're about to say is right for them. They're thinking, oh, how am I going to be perceived? What if they
Hmm.
think this? What if I lose this client? What if, da, da, da? That's conditioning.
Mm.
We call it a lot of other fancy things, but I am like a systems person. So I'm like, no, that's conditioning. Whether you learned that through your family or a combination of things, or just by nature of maybe being a woman in corporate, maybe you have that experience. Maybe somebody has called you too much. If you're creative, raise your hand if you've ever been called too much. Yeah, literally.
Mm.
We're all like, ah, I have squiggles
Yeah.
behind my head. Like, yes, you know?
Well, it's so funny because I'm like the creative person at my client's office and I work with software engineers and things like that. Like I do their marketing and I'm like, good morning, everybody. I'm like the only person who's like, let's like have a little huddle up this morning when I never worked corporate or anything. So I think it's like just kind of like fun, build the culture, collaborate, but that's just not the vibe for them, and that's totally fine. But I'm like, I'm the one who's too much.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I mean, and we take that, and I do believe that like creatives, people who are like more sensitive, just feeling more, we're like, ooh, okay, we were good at reading social cues, but sometimes to our
Mhm.
detriment, where we're like, oh, okay. And then we go and contort, we go and mute part of ourselves, we go and
Yeah.
do the labor of being like, ooh, let me try to figure out how I can package myself up or package this thing up or package my work up in a way that it'll be more accepted. I'll get more love, more money, more respect, whatever it is. And it's like that willing exchange of a muting of self, a contortion of
Hmm.
self in exchange for whatever. And to some degree in late stage capitalism, like that's the nature of a lot of things these days. But I believe that it's also incumbent on us to get real
Hmm.
clear about where that conditioning is playing a role or is at the driver's seat of our life and we're not aware of it.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I see it. I mean, I see a lot, not just in like, let's say like embodied directness, but
Hmm.
also in believing that like creativity, artistry is not equivalent to business strategy, for example.
Mm.
It's like, what? Excuse me? Like, no, it's like understanding like where some of these like things sit societally and across a lot of the layering of conditioning that just exists. And
Hmm.
yeah, it can be a lot. I think the other thing I want to name is a lot of my work scares a lot of people because when you come into it, it's like all the shit that you don't want to look at because at first it
Yeah.
complicates your life. So I do want to, listeners, hi, I want to name it. It is a thing,
Hmm.
but I am particularly like interested in being like, it's okay. That's why I am the way I am. I want to hold people. I want to be proximate with you while you kind of pull those layers back and be like, what? And I'll be, it's okay.
Hmm.
All right, it's fine. Like it
It's
actually is
fine.
fine. It's
Yeah.
okay. Because the sooner we start, the more feral we become.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. I love how you use the word feral because yeah, I feel like society we're so like conformed to to kind of like perform in a way and like work outside of who we actually are. Something that I think is interesting is the like identifying the conditions or the systems, the societal pressure. It's important to be aware to work on or even deconstruct those things because if you don't know what they are or where they come from, how are you supposed to work on it? Is that then the first step to deconstructing out of these systems, or is there
I
something
think
else?
no, it's a great question because I don't know that I believe anything is truly linear. I think that
Hmm.
there are like I think we'd all be lying to ourselves if we didn't look past the last like 2 years of our life and notice that there were moments where we were like, ooh, ooh, that doesn't, ooh. We already
Kind of like
feel it.
zigzags.
Yeah, your body's already telling the truth about where something doesn't feel so congruent. And it might be so small. That's why it's so easy to be like, ah, it's fine, you know?
Hmm.
But I think that that's part of like the understanding is it's not like, oh God, I have to just start deconstructing so that I can do that. No. It's like learning to be, first of all, just more attuned to it. So as you go out and just experience your life, not being so casual about the things that you're like, ooh, that didn't feel right. That conversation didn't land right. Why is it
Hmm.
so hard for me to put my stuff out there into the world? Starting to just allow yourself to think like, well, why do I believe that? Where have I ever had an experience that might make me think that? Or what is the first conversation I remember where I felt this way, the same way I feel right now? Those kinds of questions help to bring you back to start to recognize where some of these things came from. And sometimes it's an old belief that we're carrying and we're like became part of our operating system and we just have to just say, oh, nope, no more. And sometimes they're much more like tethered to us. Maybe they're part of our family system. I mean, I came from an Italian American family where I literally like was in the house with 5 generations of women. So like things like resting, relaxation, not in the cards for me.
Like,
That was
what
like,
is that?
no, we don't do that. No. And as creatives, what do we know? When we rest, when we are literally are just like open to be more receptive to nature, conversations, whatever, that's like where our best ideas come from. So that's why
Hmm.
it's important when we want to like run really successful businesses, we want to like create out of like pure fucking alignment with ourselves. Like, yes, the
Hmm.
conditioning conversation kind of matters quite a bit because we say, like, oh, I just feel stuck. I feel I have blocks. Yeah, I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know. You can go deeper. It's not for everybody, but it is really profound what happens, especially when I work with business owners, creatives, even people in corporate, the things that get unlocked just with a little exploration up the chain is
Hmm.
quite incredible.
Yeah, just baby steps.
Mhm.
Actually, I think it was like a few weeks ago, I didn't go into my client's office and I was feeling a lot of guilt because of that, because it's like people are expecting me. I mean, I'm a contractor, I make my own schedule, but I was like, oh my gosh, like, why am I such a people pleaser? This fucking sucks. Like, I'm a recovering people pleaser, and thank God for like my partner because he's like not a people pleaser at all. So he's really helped me figure that out. But I was really feeling that people pleasing tendencies on that day when I literally did not feel good. I could not go in. And so for me to kind of figure it out or like feel better, or I don't even know, I literally wrote a whole ass article on people pleasing. And I wonder if that's
Yes.
something similar that you're talking about, is just like
Yeah.
kind of realizing and reflecting on why am I feeling this way? Where does this come from? And I truly believe sometimes too is like I learn by helping others as well. Like I help my family do the same thing because we're Polish and we're always like helping people out and like doing everything and blah 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 for others. So it's like that's like people pleasing in itself too. So I'm like,
It's cultural. I mean, listen,
mhm,
I know. And, guilt, people pleasing, these things are so interesting when we talk about family systems. And something that you just brought up makes me want to really say kind of like my method that I use, which I like hate
Yes.
talking about methods. I'm like, oh, they feel gross to me because it's not mine. I mean, anybody can, steal it. But this is the way that I think about not just the work I do, but literally, like if you were my client right now and you're telling me about people pleasing, we would have already anchored into this, but
Hmm.
I teach this through the lens of co-conspiratorship
Okay.
because the systems themselves have taught us that there's some hierarchy between these paradoxes and these complexities that we naturally experience, like people pleasing versus not people pleasing, or control versus surrender. Like one is better than the other. And so there's immediate shame. There's
Hmm.
shame for not doing the thing, and then there's shame for feeling guilty about doing the thing. And then all of a sudden we wonder why we're like stuck. Well, because there's a lot going on there. But when you
Hmm.
look at it, invite yourself to look through the lens of co-conspiratorship, like, all right, guilt, come here. Come on. Let's sit with me.
Get your
Like,
ass over here.
yeah. It's like, I'm not like, ugh, guilt, get out of here. No. Okay. Why? Why are you feeling guilty? What do you have to share with me? Like, what do you believe to be true about the world? Like, if you personify your guilt. And if anybody who has
Hmm.
ever done parts work in therapy, it's very similar. It's like, all right, what do you think is going to happen if? Talk me through like why guilt you are feeling the way you're feeling. What do you think I should have done differently? It's almost like you're talking to these different parts of yourself,
Hmm.
conspiring with them to say like, hold on, I don't want to feel this way, and it seems you're working really hard to get me to feel a different way. So let's sit. Let's talk about this. Like, and you're
Hmm.
just doing it with yourself, but it's sort of like if you've seen the movie Inside Out, I mean, I guess that's the closest kind of comparison where you really are engaging with yourself, but not just from this perspective trying to understand, because then you'll like end up journaling for the next 12 years and still feel stuck in your business. But from the
Hmm.
perspective of co-conspiring, because it's like, all right, what do you want me to learn? I'm a learner. Good. Okay. Like, let me try to integrate your knowledge in my next few steps. Let me try to better like move in a way that all these parts of me trust me to operate at the center so that they're not trying
Hmm.
to yank me in these different directions like, oh, you got to feel guilty over here. Oh, you got to just totally be selfish over here. Because what happens, especially with creatives, we feel bursts and then we like collapse into one side or the other. And that
Hmm.
is might feel good sometimes depending on what side you're landing on, but then it like feels awful because you're not actually holding yourself in the center of, let's say, like, I don't know, creativity versus feeling totally blocked up. It's like
Hmm.
one is better than the other, but sometimes when you're feeling the most blocked, that is the friction you needed, like in your story, to create something that like pours out of you that otherwise couldn't have been birthed. And that's
Hmm.
the co-conspiratorship. It's like neither is good nor bad. It's like, what do I need to learn from this? And that's
Yeah.
just that it kind of helps. I know it, not kind of, it does help to be able to go after some of these really bigger conversations, things that can be meaty, very like tethered to who we are. It helps lighten the load to be like, I'm not judging myself. I'm just trying to learn here, people. I'm a baby. I'm
Yeah.
wobbly too.
Learning is so important when you're like going back and forth with those like parts. And is that, do you, is that from like No Bad Parts from Richard Schwartz? Like, have you read that book?
I have read that book, and I mean, I've done parts work in therapy for like 10
Okay.
years. I did
Yeah, it's like a
EMDR.
therapy practice as well, right?
Yeah. And actually, like in the apprenticeship, I have a therapist who works alongside of me. It kind of
Oh,
like keeps me
cool.
honest so that, like, because a lot of the work that I do, it does bring up stuff for people. And then I want to make sure that they're resourced. Most people
Hmm.
in the apprenticeship have their own therapists anyway, but just making
Yeah.
sure that, like, yeah, you're cared for as you start to come into some of these truths and sit with them, conspire with them. It needs some holding sometimes.
And it's probably helpful as like building or holding a space for like a community as well versus just like working one-on-one with somebody. Or I'm sure that's helpful in itself, but what benefits have you seen to work through this with like a community?
Oh, I mean, I think that this is like, I do believe the only way that, particularly for women, I think that you can kind of remember who you really are. Is when you
Mm-hmm.
sit at a proverbial table, it usually digitally, unfortunately, with other
Mm-hmm.
women, and you say a truth that makes you feel sick to say out loud. You say something to the group and you're like, oh, I can't believe I'm going to say this.
Mm-hmm.
And then they do exactly what you're doing to me. They just look at you in the eye and they nod along. And you're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, oh. And almost immediately that shit feels lighter because you now have a witness who is understanding what you're saying, who you don't like need to add more context and explain yourself and dive into those conditioning parts of ourselves. You can just say the damn
Mm-hmm.
truth and somebody's going to look at you and nod. Sometimes that is like the catalyst to somebody's sort of journey of becoming more of themselves in this world for whatever that means for them, more liberated, more feral, whatever they want to
Mm-hmm.
be, just less constricted.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's why honestly, like Western therapy is not really it. I mean, it's very beneficial. I've done it, I still do it, but I think that it misses that deep relational community component that like we all are relational little atoms and meat suits. Like we
Mm-hmm.
learn from witnessing each other and holding space with each other and being in literally community with one another. And so it is truly like an honor to be able to do this kind of work, especially with creatives. I mean, I work with the people you see on Instagram that are like have it all polished. They got some of the best content. They're killing it. And then
Mm-hmm.
they come with me. We like dig up their family systems and understand the conditioning, and their work becomes so potent because it's
Mm-hmm.
like you're clearing the gutters almost. It's like the sentiment around it, and you're just like really
Yeah.
connected to your power source.
That's cool. Yeah, I was going to ask because I know sometimes creatives have the most pressure on themselves, or they put the most pressure on themselves to either monetize their work or to create something for literally like social media. You know, how many posts we see a day, and they're like, this has to be perfect. I'm curious how you work with creatives who have that pressure on themselves. Like, maybe if you have an example you can share, or
Hmm.
maybe you've experienced it as well. But like, what do you think we could benefit from
Mm.
to feel more empowered to offer our art, our work, our services with the value we believe that we deserve?
Okay, I have a couple directions. The first thing I want to say is if you are somebody that like cares deeply about the world, like the state of the world, cares deeply about, has a vision for the type of world you want to live in, then it is incumbent on you. It is a radical fucking act for you to get with yourself, to co-conspire with yourself and co-conspire with your other fellow creatives to every day try to build evidence that you can be your most creative, feral, liberated, unencumbered, unhinged, ungovernable self. That is a radical fucking act because this world does not change unless every creative on the planet starts yesterday. I believe
Hmm.
that firmly. So that's like the systems level. Couple of things I'll offer. Okay, the first one is an exercise of like,
Okay.
okay, fine. All right, Gianna, I'm with you. Like, okay, like we gotta change the world. But like when I'm sitting at my computer trying to make a perfect Instagram post, I don't give a shit about that because my brain freezes. Okay. One thing I offer to my students is this exercise called the warden. And I make them basically come up with a persona that they refer to as the warden, which is the human that enters the chat every time you go to post on the internet, or maybe you're setting a price for a new offer. Maybe you're like going into a call about a collaboration, and the warden will come in and they will be the voice. They will be the ultimate naysayer. They will be play the devil's advocate and they will start to seep into what actually comes out. Like they will co-create the product without you knowing it. And so the exercise with the warden, because I say like we're all just being wardens of our own little prisons, being like, get me out of
Hmm.
here, but the door's open the whole time.
Hmm.
This is the game we're playing with ourselves. So it's like, great. So if you want to bust out of your own little prison, then you need to be really good friends with the warden. What do they say? What do they believe to be true? What are they trying to protect you from? What do they think is going to happen if you quite literally wrote an embarrassing thing on a sticky note and only posted that? Go ahead, ask the warden. What do they think? Because this is where you start to get the data and you can start to become attuned to what
Hmm.
their responses are. Because guess what? Those responses, those are the shit that's actually running the show subconsciously. That's why your
Hmm.
hands are frozen on the keyboard. That's why when you scroll and you start to see too many things that are inspiring you, you put your phone away altogether. You're starting to
Hmm.
judge yourself. You're starting to shame yourself. You're starting to pre-punish yourself for not being good enough.
Hmm.
Perfect warden. We are all perfect wardens. And so the exercise is to start to befriend your warden. And when you're feeling stuck, speak to them, ask them. This is tough work. This is why it's unsexy. These suggestions are not going to be for everybody because, quite frankly, people sometimes want the easier answer. But that is just a skyscraper on sand. I really do believe. But when you start to develop these relationships, you become so convicted in who you are, how you're operating, why you're posting what you're posting. You start to not give a shit about what people think. You start to care less about being perceived. It's not that it goes
Hmm.
away altogether, that's a fantasy, but you start to be in much greater communion with these parts of yourselves that are the naysayers or the wardens of your like lack of creativity prison cell, basically.
Hmm.
And the other exercise that I will give you is if
I
you're
feel like we're getting like so much value. I appreciate you sharing all of this.
I mean, it's always better done in community, and it definitely is like more potent when there's like more context around it. But I'll give you like a another exercise if you want it. Do you want one?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
This is a very short one. It could be like 30 minutes if you want it to be. But when you feel a block or you're like, oh, just, whatever it is for you, if you just take like 5 minutes and I want you to write a letter to one of your friends or a person in your family who you think about before you post something.
Ooh,
And I want you to just start the letter. 5 minutes, put it on the clock. I want you to start the letter. I'm going to disappoint you now, and here's how I'm going to do it. And I want you to just tell them exactly how you're going to disappoint them.
wow.
Okay?
That would feel powerful, honestly. It'd be
Hmm.
like, I'm gonna disappoint you.
That's right,
And
because
I
then
don't
you're as
care.
yes, because then do you see what I mean though about when
Yeah.
we are willing to do this kind of work and start to tap in, right on the other side of it is that's why I use the word feral because the feeling for me goes right to my jaw and I like want to rip a piece of meat apart. I don't even really
Hmm.
like meat that much, but it's like that foaming at the mouth feeling of like, no,
Hmm.
my life force needs a place to go. How dare you prevent me? Not that they really are.
Yeah.
Half the time you realize that you've made a whole ass story up about this
Hmm.
person. They would not feel disappointed if you did almost any of those things.
Yeah.
You're the good warden of your own prison.
Wow. I feel like people almost have to like want to do something like that. Do you feel like there are people who sometimes really hold themselves back from that reality or not that like these made up stories are reality, but
Hmm.
like the practice of like working through this. I feel like some people have a hard time with like giving themselves that space or time to actually like deconstruct these things
Yes.
from their mind and their body.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm gonna say something a little hot takey, which I hate. I hate hot takes, but like that's why all of these like weird offers on Instagram sell because they're
Hmm.
offering these very like surface level like I'm gonna teach you how to have 20K months, and it's like yeah, but what about when your life force is still tied up in a story about your dad? Like,
Hmm.
sorry, those strategies on your Notion dashboard aren't gonna help. And
Yeah.
I mean, they will. It's not to poo-poo the whole thing, but it's just like maybe it's the way my brain works. It's like you got to treat all of it at the same time. You can't just expect that. Just like honestly, anything I'm sharing here, if you only did all the things I say, you'd still fall short because you still need other strategies and you still need all of these things. But I sort
Hmm.
of take a lot of yeah, my domain sits more in the dark stuff, the people that people like the stuff people really want to avoid. And that's why I say sometimes I scare people. And I can tell. I've had people join offers and be like, "Oh, I'm ghosting." And then they'll
Hmm.
come back years later and be like, "Do you know I ghosted that program because I wasn't ready?
Ooh.
Can I and then they'll come back to work with me when they are ready. And I fully understand. Like that's why I say like this stuff is not it's not like a surface level. You really do have to be ready. And I think that when you are, because you are willing to work with yourself in such a way that you're feeling like on the edge of your own life all the time, you know?
Hmm.
But that's why we do it in community. At least that's my take on it, is like it really does change the dynamic because so many of us as creatives, even if we have these collaborative communities or whatever, it's lonely as shit. It's
Hmm.
lonely when you feel bad about where your creativity is at or that you have a vision but you literally can't get it out in the world. There's a lot of loneliness there. And
Yeah, for sure.
it's needed for us to be able to look across the table and be like, yeah, I don't have a solution for you right now. I cannot fix your problem, but I'm with you and I see you.
Yeah, that really does help is when you just you feel like you're being heard by other people and like they might not fully understand your situation, but they just kind of get it because they have things that they're also working on as well. And I love how you were talking about too, like maybe this marketing course or SEO strategy isn't going to solve your problem because like there are a lot of things deep, deep that those things are actually masking in a
Yeah.
way. And it actually reminds me of how I started doing like audits for people, and it's kind of like a business and life audit. And a lot of the times when I work with people, they typically are like, oh, I'm thinking about buying this program or this course. And it's like, why? Like, like, what's actually like the root to the way that you're feeling? Because they could list like a million and one things that they're feeling right now that's not necessarily good. So it's like, what if we just like uncovered all of those things that are more like symptoms and actually get to the root? And I feel like your work does a very similar thing. It's
Mhm.
like, why am I feeling so pulled to buy this yap challenge or whatever is going on Instagram? Like, like do people actually want to yap? I don't know. Maybe they just think that they're gonna get a lot of followers, but like, why do you want a lot of followers on Instagram? You know, like
Mhm.
there's so
Mhm.
many things that are actually masking the thing that is actually causing us to feel like that struggle.
You know what's so funny? I think like we talked about this in DMs, but I was like, you're asking me about different things I like to talk about, and one of them is this because it's like, listen, I've been in corporate for 10 years. I was a lobbyist before that. I've worked in government. I've worked in some of the like most stale or wild environments. And what's been the most surprising thing of the last 3 years of my life is coming into the entrepreneurial space to find that it's the same stuff, just masked with like Instagram masks, where it's like instead of like you need to have your Q1 plan in by da, it's like let's do quarterly strategy something or other with like colors. And I'm like, wait. Listen, I'm not saying either one is bad, but to your point, if the intent, the reason, the connection point you have to those things, to the act of doing that is coming from fear, competition, like all the same things that forces people in corporate America to do fucked up things, you're going to
Mhm.
recreate it over here. And another hot take is like I kind of came into the space and now I feel like I'm like the old like Nana witch at the edge of town where I'm like, hold on, kids, wait. No. Wait. Hey. No. Come back. Hold on. It's not what you think
Yeah.
it is, please. Because I see a lot of it, but it looks like it's just less shitty because it's not couched in the same context. But the root behind it all is coming a lot from the same place. Scarcity, fear, competition, all that
Hmm.
stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Do you see other creators or creatives like making a shift to that? And like, if so, what conversations do you think they're having?
You mean
Maybe
making a
you're
sh
one of them.
making a shift like away from trying to be corporate or like
Yeah, I guess when you first get started, it sounds like, oh, it's flexible, it's freeing, I could be creative, I could do what I want. But then because of this conditioning that society, culture, family, relationships, whatever has put so much pressure and weight on us,
Mhm.
it's almost as if we're just bringing the corporate life to entrepreneurship.
Yes.
And I do think there are a lot of creative people out there who are in corporate and in entrepreneurship, but maybe more so entrepreneurs are like creating their own foundation or something. Like they're like actually maybe they've
Hmm.
experienced the I bought a course here, there. I mean, I definitely have when I was like in this scarcity mindset or something. Do you feel like things are changing, or do you see people who are like paving a
Yes.
different way? And like, if so, like, what do you think that
Hmm.
is, or what do you think the future of entrepreneurship looks like?
Mm. I think the future of entrepreneurship honestly will look a little bit less like this like girl boss nonsense and a little bit more like everybody just kind of has a more of a portfolio career kind of thing where we have maybe a few
Yeah.
different ways to exercise our creativity without putting pressure on like I have this
Hmm.
offer and it's more loose and that
Hmm.
looseness is part of the deconstruction from the dominant culture that drives corporate
The
cultures.
latter,
Ugh.
the
And
one path.
so I'll give you some examples. So, like, for example, Chelsea Rife talks about capping her own income. Like, she's not trying to scale to the moon. She wants to just be like, okay, what's enough for me creatively? What's enough for me collaborative wise? What's enough for me financially? And like architecting her offers and her body of work really to be in alignment with that. That's like a
Hmm.
financial example. Alexa Martinez, she talks about her path, which was like leaving corporate to start her own thing, to then get burnt out in her own thing, to then be like, whoa. So to your point, it took a few tumbles to be like,
Yeah.
what? No, 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 no. Right? I would put myself in that category as well. I mean, I've had 15 years of just insanely high impact kind of roles where the boot never came off my neck for the last 15 years. Ever.
Hmm.
I mean, literally today is my first day as a free woman. Okay.
Hallelujah.
Yeah. And and so I think that like if I think it's coming once you sort of it's just like anything. It's very human nature. You try something and you're like, "Oh, wow, wait, this isn't what I thought. The grass really isn't greener over here." Or all these courses and all these strategies didn't really help. I have to change my orientation to some of these things. I have to be willing to shift how I operate regardless of the pressures that might be coming from my peers, the systems, my family, whatever. And this is a careful thing because there are very real life circumstances that are going to drive differentiation for all of us. Our partnership structures, whether we have kids or not, where we live, our, different layers and levels of privilege that we come into this with. But it's important to inspect it. Like that's the whole point of
Yeah.
my work is like you can't just like be here and be like, I'm here in entrepreneurship. It's like, whoa, what you come here with? What are some of the
Hmm.
mindsets? How are you operating on autopilot? Like, what is your autopilot? That's one of the first thing
Hmm.
I ask people that I work with. I'm like, if you had to describe your autopilot setting, what is it? And they're like, no, don't ask me that.
That's so funny. I feel like it relates to just the impact that people want to make and like coming together and then also having their own standards almost for themselves, but then also their work or in a way that is not constricting to them or it's more fluid. And I think Instagram itself is for some reason this place that I think people feel like their business just exists. And it's like, no, we live on a floating rock. You can take your business anywhere. You can collaborate with people anywhere. It doesn't just have to be on Instagram. And what you see on Instagram is literally like just a feed that is created by an algorithm. So it's like,
Yes.
I don't know, maybe from all of that, do you have anything that you would want somebody to take from this conversation moving forward, whether they're an entrepreneur, creative person, maybe somebody who's working corporate but wants to get the fuck out of there?
You know, yeah, I think that we all know that feeling. It's like whether you literally, quite literally, wake up from a sleep from this feeling or you're just meandering and you feel it. It's this like fire in your belly that rises fast to your chest. And it's like, I call
Hmm.
it, this is like when you come under the command of creation. And Liz Gilbert talks about this in the book Big Magic as this that creativity in and of itself is an entity. Like it will come to you. And if you don't grab it, it will move
Hmm.
on to somebody else. And I have a light touch on that because I don't really like the scarcity aspect of it, but the concept is important because what I want you to know is that when you feel that feeling in your belly and it goes to your chest and you're like, ah, I want to make this. I have a vision. I have a thing. And it comes. And then the
Hmm.
next minute, you watch if you can drop into your awareness of that moment and you watch how quickly the reasons not to pile up and the shoulds and the have to and the, oh, well, if I want to launch a podcast, then I got to buy a mic. And now you're 4 hours on eBay looking for the right mic.
Yeah.
That, my friends, is conditioning. And so, what I want to say to you is you do not need to decondition overnight. Please do not try. Please, please, my perfectionists who are listening, my creative,
The
lovely
the
perfectionists.
people who are like reinventing themselves. It's like
Yeah,
maybe more of like a gradual
yes,
change.
yes. Especially if you know that you have a propensity to be like, oh, there's something I'm not doing. Let me go and do that. Hold on. Time out. Slow your roll. Be more gentle with yourself and just like if you've caught on to anything we've talked about today, the only thing I want you to do, if this feels new for you, is to drop into that awareness of noticing how quickly you are willing to let go of the fire in your belly that rises to your chest. Become very aware of how quickly it leaves you, because that's going to make you pissed enough to go fucking feral. And that's where the work starts, because then you're like, what do I need to move out of the way in order to not lose this again? Like, I don't want this to go away. I want to operate from this place. And you're more willing to do some of this hard stuff that I'm talking about. And so usually, like, if you can connect into that feeling,
Hmm.
good. And
Oh
then
my
come
gosh.
over to me, and then I can help
Yes.
you.
Yes, I'm gonna leave Gianna's links in the description. I feel like I have chills from this episode because I feel like I learned so much, but so much of what you shared, even though I didn't leave corporate or I didn't work in corporate, just a lot of what you shared felt like it resonated. So I just really appreciate you sharing your story and all of your wisdom and all the free value. Oh my gosh, this is literally like so good. I'm so excited for everyone to listen. But yes, everyone who's listening, please go check out Gianna. Like she literally has so many great resources and is a wonderful person. So thank you so much for being on Dear Creator.
Thank you. And thank you for doing this. I love this podcast. I love what you're trying to do. And I just, yeah, thank you for having me. It's been really fun.